Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the starship Liberty, watching the stars drift by through the main window. His crew had been traveling through deep space for 3 months now, looking for new worlds and new life forms. Dr. Lisa Parker sat at her medical station checking the health reports from the crew while Lieutenant Mike Thompson cleaned his weapons for the 10th time that week. Engineer Sam Williams worked quietly at his control panel, making sure all the ship systems ran smoothly. The Liberty was not a military ship, but an exploration vessel sent by Earth to find friendly alien races and possible new homes for humans. Jake had always dreamed of being the first human to meet aliens and shake hands with beings from another world. Today, that dream might come true. A loud beeping sound came from the navigation console. Sam looked up from his work with wide eyes and called out to Jake. The sensors had picked up a massive alien ship approaching their position. The vessel was unlike anything in their databases. It was 3 times larger than the Liberty and had a dark metallic surface that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Jake ordered his crew to their stations and opened communication channels. Within minutes, a response came through. The alien voice was deep and spoke perfect English, which surprised everyone on the bridge. The speaker introduced himself as War Prime Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire. He claimed his people had been watching human space travel for some time and had learned their language through observation. Kethvar invited the human crew aboard his ship for what he called a friendship meeting. Jake felt excited but also nervous. Lisa warned him to be careful since they knew nothing about these aliens or their true intentions. Mike suggested they should stay on their own ship and talk through communications only. But Jake decided this was too important an opportunity to miss. The Zephyrian ship sent over a small transport vessel that attached to the Liberty with strange mechanical arms. Jake took Lisa and Mike with him while Sam stayed behind to watch their ship. As they walked through the airlock, Jake noticed the alien transport was much warmer than their own ship and had a red glow coming from the walls. Inside the Zephyrian vessel, they met Kethvar face to face. He was tall and thin with gray skin and 4 arms. His eyes were completely black, and he had no visible nose or ears. Despite his strange appearance, he seemed friendly and spoke in a calm voice. He led them through corridors filled with other Zephyrians, who all stopped to stare at the humans. The meeting room was large with a round table in the center. Kethvar offered the humans food and drink, which Lisa politely declined after scanning it with her medical equipment. The War Prime seemed understanding and began asking questions about human culture and biology. He wanted to know about their home world, their government, and their technology. Jake answered most questions, honestly believing this was the start of a peaceful relationship between their species. He told Kethvar about Earth and its many different countries and peoples. He explained how humans had only recently developed space travel and were eager to meet other intelligent beings in the galaxy. What Jake did not notice was that hidden scanners throughout the room were studying every part of their bodies. The Zephyrians were mapping human anatomy with incredible detail. They identified the heart as the pump for blood circulation. They located the lungs that processed oxygen. They found the liver that cleaned toxins and the kidneys that filtered waste. Most importantly, they studied the brain that controlled all other functions. Kethvar asked seemingly innocent questions about human medicine and how their bodies worked when injured. Lisa proudly explained how advanced human medical science had become and how they could treat many different injuries and diseases. She mentioned heart surgery, lung transplants, and brain procedures without realizing she was giving away vital information about human weaknesses. The meeting lasted several hours, with both sides sharing stories and information. Kethvar presented gifts of strange alien crystals that glowed with soft blue light. Jake gave the aliens examples of human art and music, which they seemed to find interesting, though puzzling. As the humans prepared to leave, Kethvar assured them that the Zephyrian Empire looked forward to future meetings and possible trade agreements. He spoke of peace and cooperation between their peoples. Jake felt proud that he had successfully made first contact and believed this would be remembered as a historic day for humanity. The transport brought them back to the Liberty where Sam eagerly asked about everything they had seen. Jake sent a detailed report back to Earth describing the friendly aliens and recommending further diplomatic contact. He had no way of knowing that he had just sealed the fate of his entire species. Back on the Zephyrian ship, Kethavar studied the scan results with his military advisors. The humans appeared to be weak creatures with simple biology. Their vital organs seemed obvious and easy to target. Like every other species the Zephyrians had conquered, humans would fall quickly once their hearts, lungs, and brains were destroyed in battle. Kethavar ordered his fleets to begin moving toward human space. Another primitive race would soon join the long list of civilizations that had fallen before Zephyrian might. 3 months after first contact, the peaceful quiet of Europa Station was shattered by alarms screaming through every corridor. Commander Tony Baker ran from his quarters toward the command center as explosions rocked the mining facility. Through the windows, he could see dark alien ships dropping out of space and firing bright energy weapons at the station defenses. Dr. Amy Clark was in the medical bay treating a worker who had fallen from a crane when the attack began. The lights flickered and went out, leaving only emergency power to keep essential systems running. She could hear weapons fire getting closer and knew that wounded people would start arriving soon. Her small medical team began preparing for the worst. The Zephyrian assault was swift and brutal, just as it had been on dozens of other worlds. Their ships targeted what they believed were weak points in human construction, while ground troops prepared to board the station. War Prime Kethavar watched from his flagship, confident that this first battle would end quickly once his soldiers began targeting human vital organs. Europa Station housed 3,000 miners and their families, along with a small security force. Commander Baker had only 20 armed guards and a few mining laser weapons to defend against an entire alien fleet. He knew they could not win a straight fight, but hoped to hold out long enough for help to arrive from Earth. The first Zephyrian boarding party blasted through the outer hull near the mining equipment storage area. The aliens moved through the station corridors with deadly efficiency, using energy weapons specifically designed to destroy heart and lung function. Their scans had shown them exactly where to aim for quick kills. Baker led a small team of guards to meet the invaders at the main junction. The aliens were tall, gray figures in dark armor, carrying weapons that hummed with strange energy. The first Zephyrian soldier raised his weapon and fired directly at Baker's chest. The energy beam struck exactly where his heart should be, and the alien expected the human commander to collapse immediately. Instead, Baker stumbled backward, clutching his chest, but remained standing. The weapon had punctured his lung and damaged his heart, but he was still alive and still fighting. He raised his own weapon and returned fire, hitting the surprised alien soldier. The Zephyrian fell dead, while Baker continued shouting orders to his men despite blood running from his mouth. The other aliens hesitated, uncertain why their target had not died instantly. Their weapons were calibrated to stop heart function within seconds. Baker should have been dead before he hit the ground. Instead, he fought on for another 20 minutes, organizing the defense and evacuating civilians before finally collapsing from blood loss. Similar scenes played out across the station as humans proved far more difficult to kill than expected. Miner Ryan Davis took a direct hit to his kidney area from an alien weapon designed to shut down waste processing systems. The weapon worked perfectly, destroying most of his kidney tissue. But Davis kept working to seal blast doors and evacuate his crew for another hour before seeking medical help. Pilot Kate Nelson was loading civilians into escape pods when alien soldiers cornered her in the hangar bay. An energy blast tore through, her abdomen destroying a large portion of her liver. The aliens expected her to collapse as liver failure set in within minutes. Instead, Nelson continued working to launch the escape pods and even managed to pilot the last one away from the station herself. Dr. Clark watched in amazement as wounded humans kept arriving at her medical bay with injuries that should have killed them immediately. Each case defied everything she knew about human biology. People with destroyed organs continued functioning far longer than medical science said was possible. The most shocking case was Sergeant Beth Collins, who took a direct energy hit to her heart during a firefight in the station corridors. The alien weapon completely stopped her heart for several seconds. By all rights, she should have died instantly. Instead, her heart restarted on its own, with an irregular beat that somehow kept her conscious and fighting for another hour. The Zephyrian. Soldiers began to panic as their precise biological weapons failed to produce quick kills. Their entire battle strategy depended on targeting specific organs for instant death, facing enemies who simply refused to die when shot in vital areas, created confusion and fear among the alien troops. Kethvar received reports of the strange human resistance from his ground commanders. They described humans continuing to fight with destroyed hearts, damaged lungs, and ruined kidneys. The War Prime dismissed these reports as exaggeration or equipment failure. His scientists assured him that no species could survive such precise organ damage. The battle for Europa Station lasted 6 hours instead of the predicted 30 minutes. When Zephyrian forces finally overwhelmed the human defenders, they had lost far more soldiers than expected. Worse yet, many humans had escaped in ships and escape pods carrying word of the attack back toward Earth. Dr. Clark managed to evacuate with the last group of survivors, taking her medical records with her. She had documented over 40 cases of humans surviving what should have been instantly fatal organ damage. The pattern was clear even if she could not explain it yet. As the survivors fled toward Earth, Admiral Greg Foster received the first reports of alien attack. The news was devastating, but also puzzling. How had lightly armed civilians held off an advanced alien military force for so long? The answer lay in Dr. Clark's medical data, showing human survival rates that defied normal biology. Foster immediately began mobilizing Earth's defense fleets while scientists studied the survivor reports. Something about human physiology was confusing. The aliens and causing their weapons to be less effective than designed. This unexpected advantage might be the key to defending humanity against superior alien technology. Back on Europa Station, Kethvar walked through the captured facility studying human construction and technology. His victory felt hollow given the heavy losses his forces had suffered. The humans had fought like no other species he had encountered. Their refusal to die quickly from organ damage suggested either flawed intelligence or fundamental differences in human biology. The War Prime ordered his scientists to study captured human bodies more carefully. There had to be an explanation for their unusual resistance to precise biological warfare. Once they understood the problem, they could adjust their weapons and tactics accordingly. The next battle would go more smoothly. Dr. Amy Clark sat in her laboratory aboard the medical research ship studying tissue samples from Europa Station survivors. 2 weeks had passed since the attack, and she still could not explain how so many people had survived injuries that should have killed them instantly. The data made no sense according to everything she knew about human biology. Working beside her was Dr. Carl Johnson, the military's top expert on alien biology and weapon systems. They had managed to recover several Zephyrian energy weapons from the battle site and were slowly figuring out how they worked. Each weapon seemed designed to target specific human organs with surgical precision. The breakthrough came when they tested a captured weapon on laboratory tissue samples. The alien energy beam was programmed to completely shut down heart muscle function within 3 seconds. When aimed at lung tissue, it caused immediate collapse of all air processing ability. Liver samples were destroyed so thoroughly that all toxin filtering stopped at once. Carl realized that these weapons represented the ultimate in biological warfare technology. The Zephyrians had studied human anatomy and created tools designed to shut down what they believed were essential life functions. No other species in the galaxy could survive such precise organ destruction, which explained their long history of military success. But humans were different in ways the aliens had never encountered. Dr. Clark began documenting the cases from Europa Station with new understanding. Commander Baker had survived a heart attack that should have killed him because humans could function on reduced heart capacity far longer than other species. His damaged heart kept pumping just enough blood to maintain consciousness. Ryan Davis had lost most of his kidney function but continued working because humans had 2 kidneys and could survive on partial function from just 1. The alien weapon had destroyed the targeted kidney completely but missed the backup organ entirely. Kate Nelson's liver damage was massive, but humans could regenerate liver tissue and function on as little as 20% of normal capacity. The most important discovery came when they studied Sergeant Collins' case more carefully. Her heart had stopped completely for nearly a minute, but then restarted with an irregular rhythm. Medical scans showed extensive damage to her heart muscle, yet she had remained conscious and active for over an hour afterward. Dr. Clark realized that human hearts could continue beating even with major damage as long as some muscle tissue remained functional. The alien weapons were designed to stop hearts completely, but human cardiac muscle had backup systems and could restart itself under certain conditions. This biological redundancy was something the Zephyrians had never seen before. She began comparing human anatomy to the limited data they had on other species the aliens had conquered. Every other race seemed to have single critical organs that controlled essential functions. Destroy the heart, and the creature died instantly. Damage the primary breathing organ and suffocation followed within minutes. Humans were built differently, with multiple backup systems and redundant functions. The war spread to other human colonies as more Zephyrian fleets arrived from deep space. Each battle followed the same pattern, with alien forces expecting quick victories but facing unexpectedly long resistance. Human casualties were high, but survival rates remained far above what the aliens predicted based on their weapons' effectiveness. On Mars Colony, the Defense Force made their stand at the main dome city. Marine Sergeant Beth Collins had recovered from her heart injury and volunteered to return to combat duty despite medical concerns. During the Battle of New Shanghai, she took another direct hit to the chest from an improved Zephyrian weapon designed to cause more complete heart destruction. The new weapon worked exactly as intended, completely stopping Collins' heart and causing massive damage to the surrounding tissue. By every measure known to galactic medicine, she should have died within 30 seconds. Instead, her heart muscle began contracting irregularly after 2 minutes, keeping just enough blood flowing to her brain to maintain consciousness. Collins continued fighting for another 40 minutes with a barely functioning heart, organizing the evacuation of civilian shelters and calling in artillery strikes on alien positions. She only collapsed when medics finally reached her position and forced her to accept treatment. Even then, her vital signs remained stable enough for surgery to repair some of the damage. War Prime Kethvar received increasingly disturbing reports from his field commanders. Human resistance was lasting far longer than predicted, and his casualties were mounting with each battle. The humans seemed to possess some kind of biological advantage that his scientists could not explain or counter. Dr. Clark's research team worked around the clock studying captured alien technology and human survivor cases. They discovered that Zephyrian weapons were incredibly sophisticated, targeting specific molecular structures within organs to cause complete system failure. The technology represented centuries of research into biological warfare. But the aliens had made one crucial error in their calculations. They assumed all species followed the same basic biological rules they had observed in dozens of conquered races. Hearts stopped meant instant death. Lung collapse meant suffocation within minutes. Liver failure meant toxin buildup and rapid system shutdown. Humans broke all these rules through sheer biological stubbornness. Human hearts could beat irregularly for hours with massive damage. Human lungs could function on reduced capacity almost indefinitely. Human livers could regenerate and process toxins even when mostly destroyed. Most importantly, human brains could remain conscious and functional even when other organs were failing. The medical data painted a picture of a species that refused to follow normal biological logic. Where other races had evolved efficient organ systems, humans had developed redundant backup systems that kept working under impossible conditions. This evolutionary quirk had never been seen before in the galaxy. Carl realized they had discovered humanity's greatest weapon against alien invasion. The Zephyrians had built their entire military strategy around precise biological targeting. Their weapons, their tactics, and their battle plans all assumed that destroying specific organs would result in quick, clean kills. Against humans, this strategy was not just ineffective, but counterproductive. Every failed kill attempt taught human defenders more about alien weapons, while building confidence in their own survival abilities. The psychological impact was devastating to alien forces, trained to expect instant victories. Dr. Clark prepared her final research report for military command. Humans possessed biological advantages that no other known species could match. Their redundant organ systems and adaptive capabilities made them nearly impossible to kill quickly through targeted biological warfare. This knowledge would reshape Earth's entire defense strategy for the coming war. The Zephyrian fleet arrived at Earth with overwhelming force, expecting to end human resistance within days. War Prime Kethvar commanded 200 warships against Earth's smaller defense fleet of 60 vessels. His ground forces prepared for quick conquest of the major population centers, starting with the largest cities. The Battle of New York began at dawn when alien dropships descended through the atmosphere, targeting military installations and government buildings. Dan Miller was operating a construction crane at a building site when the first energy weapons struck the city. The massive machine could lift tons of steel and concrete, making it useful for moving debris and creating barriers. An alien patrol found Miller still working his crane 6 hours after the invasion began. A Zephyrian soldier fired directly at his abdomen with a weapon designed to destroy spleen function and cause rapid internal bleeding. The energy beam struck perfectly, destroying Miller's spleen completely and causing massive internal damage. Miller felt the impact and knew he was badly hurt, but the crane controls still responded to his commands. He continued operating the heavy machinery, using it to drop concrete blocks on alien soldiers and clear escape routes for fleeing civilians. The destroyed spleen should have caused him to bleed to death within an hour, but he kept working for the entire day. At the main hospital, Nurse Patricia Young treated wounded soldiers and civilians as they arrived in overwhelming numbers. The medical facility was running out of supplies and staff, but she refused to leave her post. During an alien raid on the hospital, she took a direct hit from a bioweapon that destroyed most of her liver tissue. The weapon worked exactly as designed, shutting down her liver's ability to process toxins and maintain blood chemistry. Patricia should have fallen into a coma within hours as poisons built up in her bloodstream. Instead, she continued treating patients for another full day, relying on her damaged liver's remaining function and her body's backup systems to stay conscious. Dr. Amy Clark had established new field medical protocols based on her research into human biological redundancy. Instead of trying to fully repair damaged organs, her medics learned to keep partially functioning systems working just well enough to maintain life. This allowed wounded soldiers to return to combat much faster than anyone expected. The protocols saved hundreds of lives during the urban fighting. Soldiers with destroyed kidneys stayed in action, using medication to support their remaining kidney function. Troops with damaged hearts continued fighting as long as some cardiac muscle kept pumping blood. Pilots with collapsed lungs flew missions, breathing with reduced lung capacity. The Zephyrian ground forces began experiencing something they had never encountered before: widespread panic among their own troops. Soldiers trained for quick, efficient Kills found themselves facing enemies who simply refused to die when shot in vital organs. The psychological impact was devastating to alien morale. Fighter pilot Lucas Brown provided the most dramatic example of human biological stubbornness during an air battle over Manhattan. His aircraft was hit by multiple alien bioweapons while diving to attack a Zephyrian command ship. The first weapon destroyed most of his heart muscle, the second collapsed his lung, and the third caused massive liver damage. According to every medical calculation, Lucas should have died before his plane completed its dive. His heart was barely functioning, his breathing was severely compromised, and toxins were building in his bloodstream. Any other species would have lost consciousness within seconds of such massive organ failure. Instead, Lucas remained alert enough to keep his aircraft under control and complete his attack run. He guided his crippled fighter directly into the alien command ship, destroying both vessels in a massive explosion. The impact eliminated 300 Zephyrian officers, including several high-ranking commanders. The loss of the command ship caused chaos in alien ground operations as junior officers struggled to coordinate the invasion without their leadership. The psychological shock of watching a dying human pilot complete a suicide mission also spread through Zephyrian ranks, creating fear and uncertainty. War Prime Kethvar received increasingly desperate reports from his ground commanders. Human resistance was not only continuing but actually growing stronger as the battle progressed. His forces were taking casualties at an unacceptable rate, while human defenders seemed to fight harder with each passing hour. The alien medical teams studying captured humans made disturbing discoveries about human physiology. Heart damage that should cause instant death merely reduced cardiac function to minimal levels that somehow remained sufficient for continued activity. Lung injuries that should cause suffocation within minutes were compensated by increased efficiency in remaining lung tissue. Most troubling was the discovery that human brains could maintain consciousness and decision-making ability even when other organs were failing catastrophically. This meant that wounded humans could continue fighting and thinking tactically long after they should have been incapacitated or dead. Captain Steve Roberts demonstrated this during a space battle near Earth's moon. His cruiser was boarded by Zephyrian troops who used close-range bioweapons to target his vital organs. Energy blasts destroyed most of his heart function and one of his kidneys while he was still commanding the ship's defense. Roberts continued directing the battle for another 3 hours, operating with severely compromised organ function but maintaining full mental capacity. His tactical decisions during this period led to the destruction of 5 alien vessels before his own ship was finally overwhelmed. Even then, he led hand-to-hand fighting against boarding parties until medical teams forced him to accept treatment. The pattern repeated across every battlefield as humans demonstrated an almost supernatural ability to function with massive organ damage. Construction workers operated heavy equipment with destroyed spleens. Medical staff treated patients with failed liver function. Soldiers fought extended engagements with barely functioning hearts. Each case represented a fundamental failure of Zephyrian military doctrine. Their entire approach to warfare was based on the principle that destroying specific organs would produce quick, efficient kills, allowing for rapid conquest with minimal casualties. Against humans, this principle simply did not work. Kethvar realized that his species faced an unprecedented challenge. For the first time in their military history, they had encountered a race that did not follow the biological rules that governed every other known species. Humans possessed redundancies and adaptabilities that made their vital organs not truly vital. The War Prime ordered his scientists to develop new weapons and tactics specifically for fighting humans. But the damage to Zephyrian morale was already severe. His soldiers no longer trusted their equipment or their training when facing enemies who survived injuries that should kill any living being. Dr. Clark's field medical protocols spread throughout the human defense forces as word of their effectiveness reached other battle zones. Human commanders began organizing their forces around the principle of biological endurance rather than trying to avoid casualties entirely. The strategy was brutal but effective against alien expectations. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 47 different species across the galaxy, using the same precise biological warfare tactics. Each victory had been swift and efficient, with enemy forces collapsing within hours once their vital organs were targeted. The war against humanity was supposed to follow the same pattern, but instead had become a nightmare of endless resistance and mounting casualties. War Prime Kethvar stood in his command center studying battle reports from across human space. Every single engagement told the same impossible story. Human defenders continued fighting long after sustaining injuries that should have killed them instantly. His own forces were beginning to show signs of panic and demoralization as their most trusted weapons proved ineffective. The psychological impact was spreading through Zephyrian ranks like a plague. Soldiers who had never failed to achieve quick kills now hesitated before engaging human targets. Officers who had built careers on efficient biological warfare found their tactics useless against enemies who simply refused to die when shot in the heart or head. Captain Steve Roberts had become a legend among human defenders after surviving multiple organ failures during the Battle of Luna Station. His ship had been boarded by Zephyrian elite troops equipped with the most advanced bioweapons in their arsenal. The aliens had systematically destroyed his heart, kidney, and lung function, expecting him to collapse within minutes. Instead, Roberts had continued commanding his vessel for another 4 hours, directing tactical operations, while his damaged organs struggled to keep him alive. His heart beat irregularly, pumping just enough blood to maintain consciousness. His remaining kidney worked overtime filtering toxins, while his damaged lungs gasped for air that somehow remained sufficient for survival. The sight of Roberts issuing orders while visibly dying had terrified the Zephyrian boarding party more than any weapon could have. These soldiers were trained to fight enemies who followed predictable biological rules. Watching a human commander function with multiple organ failures violated everything they understood about life and death. Roberts had eventually led a counterattack against the boarding party, personally engaging Zephyrian soldiers in hand-to-hand combat while his body systems continued failing. The aliens retreated in confusion, unable to comprehend how a dying enemy could still pose a threat. The psychological victory was more important than the tactical one. Similar scenes played out across the war zone as human defenders learned to use their biological advantages tactically. Soldiers with destroyed hearts continued fighting, knowing they had hours of reduced function remaining. Pilots with collapsed lungs completed missions, breathing with whatever lung capacity remained functional. The most disturbing reports came from Zephyrian medical teams studying captured human prisoners. Their analysis revealed that human organ systems possessed redundancies and backup functions unlike anything seen in other species. Hearts could continue beating with massive damage. Livers could regenerate tissue and function at reduced capacity. Kidneys could compensate for each other when one was destroyed. Most shocking was the discovery that human brains could maintain full cognitive function even when other organs were failing catastrophically. This meant wounded humans retained their intelligence, creativity, and tactical thinking abilities long past the point where they should have been unconscious or dead. Dr. Amy Clark's medical research had been distributed to human forces throughout the galaxy, providing field medics with techniques to keep partially functioning organs working just long enough for continued combat effectiveness. The protocols were brutal by normal medical standards, but incredibly effective against alien expectations. Kethvar received a report that shook him to his core. During the assault on Titan Colony, a single human demolitions expert named Gary Chen had destroyed an entire Zephyrian supply depot while operating with a destroyed heart and collapsed lung. The man had been shot multiple times with precision bioweapons, but had continued working for 3 hours to plant explosives throughout the facility. Chen had died eventually, but not before completing his mission, and eliminating supplies meant to support 1,000 alien soldiers for 6 months. The loss forced Kethvar to withdraw his forces from that sector entirely. One dying human had achieved what an entire military campaign should have prevented. The War Prime's own scientists presented him with analysis that contradicted everything Zephyrian military doctrine taught about biological warfare. Humans appeared to have evolved organ systems designed for endurance rather than efficiency. Where other species had single critical organs, humans had multiple backup systems that could maintain life under impossible conditions. The evolutionary advantage made sense from a survival perspective but was devastating to Zephyrian tactics. Their weapons were calibrated to destroy specific organs based on data from dozens of other conquered species. Against humans, these same weapons caused severe damage, but rarely achieved the quick kills that Zephyrian strategy required. Worse yet, human forces were adapting their tactics to take advantage of their biological resilience. Instead of trying to avoid casualties, human commanders were organizing suicide missions and desperate last stands that maximized the psychological impact on Zephyrian troops. The sight of dying humans continuing to fight was breaking alien morale across multiple battlefronts. Reports came in of Zephyrian soldiers refusing orders to engage human defenders. Some units had experienced complete breakdowns when faced with enemies who survived direct hits to vital organs. The efficiency-focused Zephyrian military had no training for dealing with enemies who operated outside normal biological parameters. Kethvar realized that his empire faced an unprecedented crisis. The humans had revealed a fundamental flaw in Zephyrian military doctrine that threatened everything they had built. If word spread to other conquered species that the mighty Zephyrian bioweapons could be resisted through biological adaptation, rebellions might break out across the galaxy. The War Prime ordered his scientists to develop entirely new weapons and tactics specifically designed for fighting humans. Traditional organ-targeting approaches had to be abandoned in favor of more destructive methods that would overcome human biological redundancy. But developing new military technology would take time his forces did not have. Meanwhile, human resistance was growing stronger with each battle. Defenders who survived alien bioweapon attacks became living examples of human resilience, inspiring others to fight harder. The psychological advantage was shifting rapidly toward humanity, despite their technological disadvantage. Commander Jake Morrison, who had first encountered the Zephyrians months earlier, now led a defense fleet protecting Earth's orbital installations. His crew had learned to fight while literally falling apart, using their biological endurance as a weapon against alien expectations. The same traits that had made humans seem weak during first contact were now proving to be their greatest strength. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most primitive biological features could defeat the most advanced military technology. Human stubbornness written into their very DNA was proving stronger than Zephyrian precision and efficiency. The final battle for Earth began with the largest Zephyrian fleet ever assembled, moving into orbit around humanity's home world. War Prime Kethvar had gathered every available ship and soldier for one desperate attempt to end human resistance, before it could spread to other parts of the galaxy. His forces outnumbered the human defense fleet 5-1, but morale among his troops remained dangerously low. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the alien armada take position for assault. His defense fleet was badly outnumbered, and most of his ships showed damage from previous battles. More importantly, many of his crew were operating with severe injuries that should have put them in medical facilities rather than combat stations. Morrison himself was a prime example of human biological stubbornness. Earlier battles had left him with a punctured heart that beat irregularly and damaged lungs that provided only 60% of normal oxygen flow. By every medical standard, he should have been unconscious or dead. Instead, he remained fully alert and capable of commanding the most important battle in human history. Dr. Amy Clark worked frantically in the medical bay, treating wounded crew members using techniques that would have horrified doctors from any other species. Instead of fully Repairing damaged organs, she focused on keeping partially functional systems working just long enough for continued combat duty. Her patients returned to their stations with destroyed kidneys, failing hearts, and collapsed lungs. The psychological impact on visiting alien observers was devastating. Zephyrian intelligence officers watching human preparations could not understand how a crew of walking wounded could function as an effective fighting force. Their own species would have been completely incapacitated by similar injuries, yet humans continued working as if organ damage was merely an inconvenience. Kethavar launched his attack with a massive bombardment designed to overwhelm human defenses through sheer firepower. His bioweapons had proven unreliable against human targets, so he relied on conventional explosives and energy weapons to destroy human ships outright. The strategy worked initially as several human vessels were destroyed in the opening minutes of battle, but the surviving human ships continued fighting with damage that should have disabled them completely. Captain Lisa Torres commanded a cruiser that had lost main power life support and most of its weapon systems. Her crew was breathing emergency air and operating in near darkness, yet they managed to destroy 2 Zephyrian destroyers using manual targeting and backup systems. The most shocking moment came when Lieutenant Gary Chen volunteered for a suicide mission against the Zephyrian flagship. Chen had survived multiple bioweapon hits during previous battles, leaving him with a barely functioning heart and severe liver damage. Medical scans showed he had perhaps 2 hours of life remaining, even with intensive treatment. Instead of accepting medical care, Chen climbed into a damaged fighter craft and launched toward Kethavar's command ship. The small vessel was riddled with holes and missing most of its armor, but Chen somehow kept it flying through willpower and determination. Zephyrian gunners hit his fighter multiple times with bioweapons designed to cause instant pilot death. The weapons struck Chen, directly destroying what remained of his heart function and causing massive organ failure throughout his body. By every measure of galactic medicine, he died while still piloting his craft. Yet somehow he remained conscious long enough to guide his fighter into the flagship's main reactor, causing a massive explosion that crippled the Zephyrian command structure. The sight of a clinically dead human pilot completing a successful attack broke Zephyrian morale completely. Soldiers who had conquered dozens of species found themselves facing enemies who continued fighting after death itself. The psychological shock spread through alien ranks, causing panic and confusion at the worst possible moment. Kethavar watched his carefully planned assault dissolve into chaos as his forces lost the will to fight. Reports flooded in from across the battle zone describing human defenders who simply refused to acknowledge that they should be dead. Soldiers with destroyed organs, pilots with failed hearts, and engineers with collapsed lungs all continued working with supernatural determination. The turning point came when Zephyrian ground forces attempted their final assault on Earth's major population centers. They deployed their most powerful bioweapons designed to simultaneously destroy multiple organ systems and cause instant death, even in humans. The weapons worked exactly as intended, causing massive damage to every human defender. They hit, but the humans did not die. They kept fighting. Construction worker Dan Miller operated heavy equipment with a destroyed spleen and damaged heart for 6 hours after being hit by weapons that should have killed him in minutes. Nurse Patricia Young treated wounded civilians, with complete liver failure, somehow maintaining consciousness through sheer determination. Soldier after soldier continued combat operations with multiple organ failures that defied every law of biology. The Zephyrian assault forces broke and fled when faced with enemies who fought harder after being mortally wounded. These soldiers had been trained for efficient warfare against logical opponents who died when their vital organs stopped working. They had no training for fighting zombies who remained dangerous long after clinical death. Morrison coordinated the human counterattack while his own damaged heart struggled to pump blood to his brain. His tactical decisions during this critical period were brilliant, despite his failing organ systems. The combination of human determination and Zephyrian panic created opportunities that turned the tide of battle decisively. Kethavar realized that his empire had encountered something beyond their understanding or ability to defeat. The humans possessed a biological advantage that made conventional warfare impossible. Their refusal to die when they were supposed to had transformed them from weak primitives into the most terrifying opponents in galactic history. The War Prime ordered a general retreat as his forces abandoned their positions and fled toward deep space. The defeat was total and humiliating, representing the first major military failure in Zephyrian history. Worse yet, the psychological damage would take generations to repair if it could be repaired at all. Dr. Clark's final medical report became legendary throughout human space and eventually spread to other species across the galaxy. Her documentation of human biological resilience revealed that Earth's children possessed advantages no other race could match. Hearts that refused to stop, lungs that kept working with massive damage, and brains that remained functional even when the body was dying. The war ended with humanity's survival secured not through superior technology or tactics, but through biological stubbornness that existed in every human cell. The species that had seemed weakest during first contact had proven to be the most resilient when faced with extinction. As news of the victory spread throughout human space, Dr. Clark added one final note to her research. Humans were not built for efficiency like other species. They were built for endurance, survival, and the stubborn refusal to quit even when facing impossible odds. Sometimes, the most primitive biological features could defeat the most advanced military technology in the galaxy.